The USS Liberty shook violently as it dropped out of hyperspace. Captain Jake Morrison gripped his command chair as alarms blared throughout the bridge. Red warning lights flashed across every screen and the ship's computers screamed warnings about system failures. "Report!" Morrison shouted over the noise. Lieutenant Lisa Carter looked up from her communication station, her face pale. "Sir, our navigation system crashed during the jump. We're completely off course." "How far off course?" Morrison asked. Chief Engineer Ryan Walsh's voice came through the intercom from the engine room. "Captain, I'm seeing massive damage to our jump drive. Whatever happened, we're not going anywhere fast." Morrison stood up and walked to the main viewing screen. Outside, space looked different than anything he had seen before. Strange purple and green lights danced in the distance and massive metal structures hung in the void like sleeping giants. "Lisa, are you picking up any signals?" Morrison asked. "Sir, I'm getting multiple transmissions, but they're in languages I've never heard before. The computer can't translate them yet." Commander Helen Brooks, the ship's tactical officer, suddenly looked up from her station. "Captain, we have a problem. I'm reading 12 massive defense platforms surrounding us. They're powering up weapons." Morrison felt his heart rate increase. The Liberty was an exploration ship, not a warship. They had basic shields and light weapons, but nothing that could fight 12 military platforms. "Are they targeting us?" Morrison asked. "Not yet, sir, but their weapons are definitely charging up. Whatever those platforms are, they pack enough firepower to destroy a whole fleet." Ryan Walsh appeared on the bridge, wiping grease from his hands. "Captain, I've been looking at our sensor data. This technology is way beyond anything we have. Those platforms use energy sources I don't even recognize." Morrison nodded. "Lisa, what about those transmissions?" "The computer is starting to translate some of it, sir. Most of it seems to be warnings. Things like leave immediately and unauthorized entry detected. But there's something strange." The voices sound panicked. "Panicked?" Morrison raised an eyebrow. "Yes, sir. And I'm picking up communications between different stations. They seem to be asking each other what to do about us." Commander Brooks looked confused. "That doesn't make sense. If they wanted us gone, why haven't they fired? They clearly have the power to destroy us." Morrison walked closer to the main screen. The defense platforms were huge, each one bigger than his entire ship. Their weapons glowed with deadly energy, but they remained still, like guard dogs unsure whether to attack. "Sir," Lisa said, "I'm getting clearer translations now. One of the messages said something about confirming the identification and checking the restricted files." "Restricted files?" Morrison asked. "I think they're trying to figure out what we are, sir." Ryan Walsh looked at his portable scanner. "Captain, I'm detecting more structures beyond those platforms. This whole area seems to be some kind of industrial zone. Mining stations, research facilities, military bases. It's huge." Morrison made a decision. "Lisa, open a channel. All frequencies, sir. If they want to know what we are, let's tell them." Lisa's fingers moved across her console. "Channel open, sir." Morrison straightened his uniform and spoke clearly. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the human vessel USS Liberty. We are explorers from Earth. Our navigation systems failed and we appear to have entered your space by accident. We come in peace and request communication to resolve this situation." The bridge fell silent. Everyone waited for a response. Suddenly, all the alien transmissions stopped. The communications channels went completely quiet. "Lisa, are you still receiving their signals?" "No, sir." Everything just went dead. All their communications just stopped. Commander Brooks stared at her tactical display. "Captain, the defense platforms are powering down their weapons." "Good. Maybe they understood our message." "Sir, I don't think that's why they powered down." Morrison looked at her. "What do you mean?" "I'm reading massive movement throughout the sector. Ships are launching from every base and station. Hundreds of them." Ryan Walsh looked up from his scanner. "Captain, those aren't attack formations. They look like evacuation fleets." "Evacuation?" Morrison couldn't believe what he was hearing. Lisa suddenly spoke up. "Sir, I'm picking up new transmissions. The computer is translating them now. They're saying things like abandon Sector 12 and implement Protocol 7. Commander Brooks watched her screen in amazement. "Captain, they're leaving. All of them. Every station, every base, every ship in this sector is evacuating." Morrison stared at the main screen. In the distance, he could see lights moving as alien ships fled their positions. The massive industrial complex that had been bustling with activity minutes ago was being abandoned. "But why?" Morrison asked. "We told them we come in peace." Ryan Walsh shook his head. Maybe they don't believe us, or maybe they know something we don't. Lisa looked up from her station. Sir, I'm getting long-range sensor data. There are more human ships approaching our position. More human ships? Yes, sir. 3 vessels. They're transmitting identification codes for the New Horizon, Star Chaser, and Deep Explorer. They're part of our exploration fleet. Morrison felt relief and worry at the same time. Relief that they weren't alone, but worry about how the aliens would react to more human ships arriving. Commander Brooks reported what everyone was thinking. Captain, when those alien ships see 4 human vessels instead of 1, they're going to think we're an invasion force. Morrison nodded grimly. The other 3 ships were supposed to meet them at a different rendezvous point, but the navigation failure must have brought them all to this strange sector. Lisa, contact the other ships. Tell them about the situation here. Already trying, sir. They should be in communication range in 10 minutes. Ryan Walsh looked worried. Captain, I'm reading something else on the long-range sensors. The alien evacuation fleets aren't just leaving this sector. They're heading deeper into their own territory, and they're sending messages ahead of them. What kind of messages? Warning messages, sir. They're telling everyone that humans are coming. Morrison felt a chill run down his spine. Somehow, their peaceful first contact with an alien civilization had turned into something that looked like the beginning of a war. The aliens were so afraid of humans that they were abandoning entire sectors of space just to get away from them. But why? What could possibly make an advanced alien civilization with superior technology so afraid of a few human exploration ships? As the USS Liberty drifted in the abandoned sector, surrounded by the remnants of alien civilization, Captain Morrison realized that humanity's first contact with the galaxy was not going according to plan. Something about humans terrified these aliens, and he had no idea what it could be. Admiral Zethkar had served the Galactic Empire for over 200 years. He had fought in 7 major wars and commanded fleets that conquered entire star systems. But as he stared at the report on his desk, his hands shook with fear. The message was simple. Human vessel detected in Sector 12. Requesting immediate orders. Zethkar pressed a button on his desk. Emergency Council meeting. Now. Authorization level black. Within minutes, the command center of Sector Command Station filled with the Empire's highest military leaders. General Vostok arrived first, his blue skin darker than usual with worry. Science Advisor Krelnoth hurried in carrying a datapad filled with classified files. Fleet Commander Tarngol entered last, still wearing his combat armor. Report, Zethkar said simply. The station's communications officer, a young Kithani named Jexal, stepped forward nervously. Sir, automated defense platforms in Sector 12 detected a vessel of unknown design. Initial scans identified the crew as human. The ship sent a peaceful message, but protocols required immediate escalation. General Vostok slammed his fist on the table. How is this possible? The containment zone has held for 3,000 years. Science Advisor Krelnoth looked up from his datapad. General, if humans are operating outside their designated zone, it can only mean one thing. They've broken containment. The question is how many of them are out there. Fleet Commander Tarngol stepped forward. Sir, I recommend immediate military response. Deploy the 3rd Fleet and contain this threat before it spreads. No. Zethkar's voice echoed through the command center. You clearly don't understand what we're dealing with. Krelnoth, show them the files. The Science Advisor activated the room's main display. Ancient documents appeared on the screen, marked with the highest classification levels. These records date back 3,000 years to the first and last time the Empire encountered humans. The display showed star maps of a small solar system on the edge of known space. A blue planet orbited a yellow star, surrounded by primitive space stations and small ships. Krelnoth continued. At the time, the Empire was expanding rapidly. We had conquered 47 species and absorbed their technology. We were unstoppable. When we found this primitive world called Earth, we offered them standard terms. Join the Empire as vassals or face complete destruction. What happened? Jexal asked. They chose option 3, war. The display changed to show battle reports and fleet movements. Tarngol studied the data carefully. These numbers don't make sense. The humans had maybe 100 small ships. We sent the 7th Fleet, over 3,000 vessels. It should have been over in days. It was over in 6 months, Zethkar said quietly, but not the way we expected. Kralnoth pulled up more files. The humans fought like nothing we had ever seen. They used tactics that defied all military logic. Ships would ram our vessels at full speed, destroying both ships but taking out vessels 10 times their size. They would board our ships with small groups of soldiers who seemed to have no fear of death. General Vostok looked confused. Suicidal tactics shouldn't have worked against our superior numbers. That's what our commanders thought, Zethkar replied. But something else happened. Something our psychologists still don't fully understand. The humans learned. The display showed technical specifications and battle analysis. Every time we destroyed a human ship, they would study the wreckage. Within weeks, they were building ships that used our own technology against us. They didn't just copy our designs, they improved them. Fleet Commander Tarngol stared at the data. How fast were they learning? Faster than we could adapt our tactics. By month 3, human ships were using weapons more advanced than our own. By month 5, their soldiers were boarding our ships with technology we didn't recognize. Science Advisor Kralnoth activated another file. But the real problem wasn't their learning speed. It was psychological. Our military forces began suffering from a condition the medical staff called combat paralysis. They became afraid to fight humans. Why? Jexal asked. Because humans don't fight like any other species. Most civilized races have rules of war, concepts of acceptable losses, logical retreat points. Humans seem to have none of these. They would fight until every last one of them was dead, and they would take as many of us with them as possible. Admiral Zethkar stood up slowly. The war ended not because we defeated the humans. It ended because our own forces were becoming mentally unstable. Fleet commanders were refusing orders. Soldiers were deserting rather than face human boarding parties. Our psychologists warned that continued conflict would drive our entire military insane. The room fell silent. Finally, Tarngol spoke. What were the peace terms? Kralnoth displayed the final classified document. There were no peace terms. Not really. Our diplomats negotiated what they called a containment agreement. The humans would stay in their solar system, and we would leave them alone forever. We established a restricted zone around their space and declared it off-limits to all Imperial traffic. And they agreed to this? Vostok asked. We never found out if they agreed, Zethkar said. Our negotiators were so terrified that they sent the agreement and left immediately. The humans never responded, but they also never left their solar system, until now. Suddenly, alarms began blaring throughout the command center. Communications Officer Jexal rushed to his station. Sir, long-range sensors are detecting more human ships entering Sector 12. 4 vessels total, and they're moving toward Imperial space. Fleet Commander Tarngol reached for his weapon. 4 ships! We can handle 4 ships. Can we? Zethkar asked quietly. 3,000 years ago, 100 human ships nearly destroyed the 7th Fleet. How much have they advanced since then? Science Advisor Kralnoth was checking his calculations. Admiral, if human learning speed remained constant, their technology could be anywhere from 500 to 1,000 years ahead of ours. General Vostok looked sick. What are your orders, sir? Admiral Zethkar walked to the communication station. Activate Protocol 7. Sir? Jexal looked confused. Evacuation Protocol 7. All Imperial forces in Sectors 10 through 15 are to evacuate immediately. No contact with human vessels. No attempts at communication. Complete withdrawal until the Imperial Senate can meet and decide our response. Fleet Commander Tarngol protested. Sir, we're abandoning 6 sectors because of 4 ships? Zethkar turned to face him. Commander, those aren't just 4 ships. They're the advanced scouts of the most dangerous species the galaxy has ever known. A species that learned to fight us better than we could fight ourselves. A species that traumatized the greatest military force in galactic history. As evacuation orders went out across Imperial space, Admiral Zethkar stared at the tactical display showing human ship movements. The 4 vessels were moving slowly, seemingly following the retreating Imperial fleets. To human eyes, it might look like peaceful exploration. To Imperial minds, it looked exactly like the beginning of an invasion. 3,000 years of careful containment had just ended. The humans were loose in the galaxy again, and nobody knew what they wanted or how to stop them. Captain Jake Morrison stood in the Liberty's conference room, facing the commanders of the other 3 human ships. The meeting felt surreal. Humanity's first contact with alien civilization, and they were discussing it in an abandoned sector of space that looked like a war zone. Captain Amy Foster of the Deep Explorer shook her head in disbelief. So you're telling me that as soon as you identified yourselves as human, an entire alien civilization started running away? That's exactly what happened, Morrison replied. Every ship, every station, every military installation in this sector evacuated within hours. Captain Tom Phillips from the New Horizons studied the sensor data on his portable screen. The industrial infrastructure here is massive. Mining operations, research facilities, military bases. They abandoned billions of credits worth of equipment just to get away from us. Captain Kevin Stone of the Star Chaser looked worried. This doesn't make sense. We're 4 exploration ships with basic scientific equipment. What could possibly make an advanced civilization this afraid of us? Morrison activated the conference room's main display. That's what we need to figure out. Lisa has been monitoring their communications, and what we're hearing is disturbing. Lieutenant Lisa Carter entered the room carrying a datapad full of translated messages. Captains, the alien communications are getting clearer as our computers learn their languages. They're calling us the apex species and the unstoppable tide. They keep referring to something called the 6-month war. Dr. Amy Foster, the Liberty's xenobiologist, looked up from her notes. I've been analyzing the abandoned facilities. Their technology is advanced but old. Really old. It's like their development stopped centuries ago. What do you mean? Captain Phillips asked. Look at their power systems, their ship designs, even their communications technology. It's all sophisticated but outdated. Like they reached a certain level and then stopped innovating. Chief Engineer Ryan Walsh joined the meeting, wiping his hands on a work cloth. I've been studying their defense platforms. The technology is incredible, but the designs are ancient. It's like they built these things a long time ago and never upgraded them. Security Chief Kevin Stone from the Liberty looked troubled. Maybe they stopped advancing because they didn't need to. If you're the dominant power in the galaxy, why waste resources on new weapons? Or maybe, Dr. Foster said slowly, they stopped advancing because something traumatized them so badly that they became afraid to take risks. Morrison nodded. Lisa, what else are you picking up from their communications? Sir, they're sending warning messages to every part of their empire. Things like humans have broken containment and prepare for total war. But there's something strange. In their military communications, they keep mentioning psychological support units and combat trauma specialists. Captain Foster raised an eyebrow. Combat trauma specialists? Why would they need those if they haven't been in a war for centuries? Navigator Tom Phillips looked up from plotting their position. Captains, I think we have a more immediate problem. Long-range sensors show that the alien evacuation fleets aren't just leaving this sector. They're fleeing deeper into their own territory, and we're accidentally following them. Morrison looked at the tactical display. Following them? Yes, sir. Every time we move toward their communication signals to try to establish contact, they retreat further. From their perspective, it probably looks like we're chasing them. Captain Stone groaned. So our attempts at peaceful first contact look like military pursuit. That's exactly what it looks like, Phillips confirmed. Ryan Walsh activated his engineering scanner. Captains, there's something else. I've been analyzing the energy signatures from their abandoned facilities. Their technology uses power sources that should be impossible with their apparent level of development. What do you mean? Morrison asked. I mean they're using energy principles that are centuries ahead of what their ship design suggests they should know. It's like they learned advanced physics from somewhere else. Dr. Foster looked thoughtful, or from someone else. Maybe they didn't develop this technology themselves. Lieutenant Carter suddenly looked up from her communication station. Captains, I'm getting new transmissions. The aliens are broadcasting on multiple frequencies. The computer is translating it as an emergency message to something called the Imperial Senate. What does it say? Morrison asked. It's a request for an emergency session to discuss the return of the human threat and activation of ancient defense protocols. Sir, they're treating our presence like the beginning of a war. Captain Phillips studied the star maps. How many ships are we tracking in their evacuation fleets? Over 3,000 vessels have left this sector alone, Carter replied. And long-range sensors suggest they're mobilizing fleets throughout their territory. Morrison felt sick. We're 4 exploration ships and we've accidentally triggered what looks like galaxy-wide military mobilization. Security Chief Stone looked grim. Captain, there's something else to consider. If they're this afraid of us and they're calling us the apex species, What does that say about human military capabilities? What do you mean? I mean, maybe they know something about humans that we don't know about ourselves. Dr. Foster looked up from her xenobiology notes. That's an interesting point. What if humanity had contact with this civilization before? What if there's a history we don't know about? Ryan Walsh checked his historical databases. Our records only go back about 5,000 years reliably. If there was earlier contact, we might not have records of it. Morrison made a decision. Lisa, see if you can isolate communications from their historical archives or academic institutions. If there's a record of previous human contact, that's where it would be. I'll try, sir, but their communications are becoming more encrypted as they move away from us. Captain Foster looked worried. Captains, we need to consider our options. We can try to catch up with their fleets and attempt communication, or we can withdraw and report back to Earth. If we chase them, Captain Stone pointed out, we'll only confirm their belief that we're invading. But if we withdraw, Morrison replied, we'll never understand why they're afraid of us. And this fear might prevent any future peaceful contact between humans and galactic civilization. Tom Phillips looked at the long-range sensors. Captains, we may not have a choice. I'm detecting more ships entering this sector. Big ships. Military vessels with heavy weapon signatures. Morrison felt his heart rate increase. Are they targeting us? No, sir. They're positioning themselves between us and the evacuation fleets. It looks like they're setting up a defensive line. Dr. Foster stared at the tactical display. They're not trying to attack us. They're trying to protect their own people from us. Morrison realized the full scope of their situation. 4 human exploration ships had accidentally triggered the largest military mobilization in galactic history. An entire civilization was fleeing from them, convinced that humanity represented an existential threat. The worst part was, nobody on either side understood why. All right, Morrison said finally. We need answers. Lisa, focus on intercepting any historical or academic communications. Ryan, keep analyzing their technology for clues about previous human contact. Everyone else maintain course but make no aggressive moves. We're going to figure out why the galaxy is afraid of humanity. As the 4 human ships continued their unintentional pursuit of the fleeing alien civilization, Morrison couldn't shake the feeling that they were repeating history. But what history? And how had humanity become the galaxy's greatest fear? Emperor Kothron had ruled the Galactic Empire for 800 years. He had seen the rise and fall of civilizations, the birth of new technologies, and the expansion of imperial power across 1,000 worlds. But he had never called an emergency session of the Grand Military Council. Until today. The massive council chamber on Xandros Prime filled with the Empire's most powerful leaders. Fleet admirals, sector commanders, military scientists, and intelligence chiefs gathered around the circular table that had seen countless strategic decisions. Today they faced a crisis none of them had prepared for. Grand Historian Veldana was the oldest being in the room. Her species lived for thousands of years, and she was one of the few who remembered the time before the current era of peace. She carried with her a collection of data crystals that contained the Empire's most classified historical records. Your Imperial Majesty, Admiral Zethkar began, the situation is deteriorating rapidly. Human vessels are now operating in 6 sectors, and our evacuation fleets are reporting panic among civilian populations. General Vostok activated the chamber's tactical display. The humans appear to be following our retreating forces. Military analysts believe this indicates scouting behavior preceding a full invasion. Emperor Kothron raised his hand for silence. His ancient face showed the weight of decision that could affect trillions of lives. Before we discuss military responses, we must understand what we face. Veldana, present the historical records. The Grand Historian stepped forward and placed her data crystals into the chamber's central archive system. Your Majesty, what I am about to show you has been classified at the highest levels for 3,000 years. These records were sealed by your predecessor's order and marked never to be opened except in case of human contact. The lights dimmed, and the chamber's walls became screens showing star maps from millennia past. The Empire was smaller then, but still mighty, with fleets that could conquer solar systems in days. 3,000 years ago, Veldana began, the Empire was expanding at its fastest rate in history. We had perfected the art of conquest. Our standard procedure was simple. Offer newly discovered species the choice between joining the Empire as vassals or facing complete annihilation. Fleet Admiral Krekstar, the oldest military commander present, leaned forward. I remember studying those campaigns in military academy. We conquered 47 species in 50 years. 46 species, Veldana corrected. The 47th was different. The display changed to show a small yellow star system on the edge of explored space. A blue planet orbited peacefully, surrounded by primitive space installations and tiny ships. We found them here, a species calling themselves humans, inhabiting a world they called Earth. Our scouts reported a primitive civilization that had barely achieved faster than light travel. They had perhaps 100 small vessels and basic weapons technology. Science Commander Dalith looked confused. What made them different from the other species we conquered? Their response to our ultimatum. The display showed Imperial diplomatic records and first contact protocols. Admiral Tethron commanded the 7th Fleet. 3,000 vessels, our most powerful force. He delivered the standard message: join the Empire or be destroyed. What was their reply? Emperor Kothron asked, though from his expression he already knew the answer would disturb him. Veldana activated an audio file. The ancient recording crackled with age, but the words were clear. This is Admiral Sarah Johnson of the Earth Defense Force. Your ultimatum is rejected. If you want our world, you'll have to take it. The council chamber fell silent. Finally, General Vostok spoke. That's it? No negotiation? No request for terms? That was their entire response. Admiral Tethron interpreted this as expected pre-conquest posturing. He ordered a standard assault formation and expected to complete the conquest within a week. The display changed to show battle reports and fleet positions. The war began with the Battle of Luna Station. Admiral Tethron sent a single squadron to destroy the humans' largest military base as a demonstration of Imperial power. Fleet Admiral Krekstar studied the tactical data. One squadron against primitive ships? It should have been over in hours. It was over in hours, Veldana confirmed. The Imperial squadron was completely destroyed. How? Science Commander Dalith demanded. The humans used tactics our military had never encountered. They didn't try to match our superior firepower. Instead, they used what our analyst later called acceptable loss strategy. Human ships would ram Imperial vessels at full speed, trading one human ship for one Imperial ship. General Vostok looked confused. But that's suicide. No rational military force would trade equally with a superior enemy. That was our first mistake, Veldana continued, assuming the humans were rational by Imperial standards. Admiral Tethron sent larger forces, expecting the humans to see the futility of resistance. Instead, the humans began adapting. The display showed technical analyses and captured equipment. Within weeks, human ships were incorporating Imperial technology. But they weren't just copying our designs, they were improving them. Human engineers would study wreckage from destroyed Imperial ships and build better versions. Emperor Kothron leaned back in his throne. How much better? By month 2, human ships were using energy weapons more efficient than our own. By month 3, their armor was stronger than Imperial battlecruisers. By month 4, they were deploying technologies our scientists didn't recognize. Science Commander Dalith stared at the data in disbelief. That's impossible. No species learns that fast, the humans did. But the technological advancement wasn't the worst part. The worst part was psychological. Veldana activated medical and psychological reports from the time period. Imperial forces began suffering from what military psychologists called human combat syndrome. Soldiers became afraid to board human ships. Pilots refused to engage in close combat. Entire units requested transfers away from human space. Why? Fleet Admiral Krekstar asked. Because fighting humans was unlike fighting any other species. Most civilized races surrender when facing overwhelming odds. They negotiate when their casualties become unsustainable. They retreat when their positions become hopeless. Humans did none of these things. The display showed boarding action reports and combat recordings. Human soldiers would fight until every last one was dead. They would continue fighting even when wounded, even when their weapons were destroyed, even when their ships were crippled. Imperial forces reported that humans seemed to have no fear of death. Emperor Kothron looked troubled. What ended the war? Mental collapse of Imperial forces. By month 5, Admiral Tethron was requesting reinforcements not because he was losing ships, but because his crews were becoming mentally unstable. Military psychologists warned that continued exposure to human combat tactics would cause permanent psychological damage to the entire 7th Fleet. General Vostok looked sick. The greatest military force in galactic history was defeated by psychological warfare. Not defeated, Veldana corrected. The war was ended by Imperial surrender. Admiral Tethron ordered a complete withdrawal and requested emergency peace negotiations. What were the terms? Emperor Kothron asked. There were no terms. Imperial negotiators were so traumatized that they simply designated the human solar system as a restricted zone and declared it permanently off-limits to Imperial contact. The humans never responded to our peace offers, but they also never pursued our retreating forces. The council chamber remained silent for long minutes. Finally, Science Commander Deleth spoke. If the humans had superior technology and tactics, why didn't they conquer us? That question has haunted Imperial strategists for 3,000 years. Our best theory is that humans are territorial rather than expansionist. They fought to defend their world, not to conquer ours. Fleet Admiral Krextar looked at the current tactical reports, but now they're outside their territory. What does that mean? Emperor Kothron stood slowly. It means, Admiral, that the galaxy's greatest military power spent 3,000 years hoping we would never find out. The humans who traumatized the 7th Fleet were using primitive technology and basic ships. The humans approaching our territory now have had 3,000 years to advance. The weight of that realization settled over the Council like a shroud. Somewhere in the galaxy, 4 human ships were moving through Imperial space. Ships built by a species that had once defeated the Empire's greatest fleet, using nothing but courage, adaptability, and an absolute refusal to surrender. Nobody in the Council chamber wanted to find out what humans could do with 3,000 years of additional development. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Liberty, staring at the most important message in human history. After days of intercepting alien communications, Chief Engineer Ryan Walsh had finally broken through their encryption and accessed their historical databases. Captain, Ryan said, his voice shaking with excitement and disbelief. You need to see this. I found records of the 6-month war they keep talking about. The bridge crew gathered around the main display as Ryan activated the translated files. Ancient documents appeared on screen, showing star maps, battle reports, and diplomatic records dating back 3,000 years. Dr. Amy Foster read the first document aloud. First contact report, species designation human, planet designation Earth, technological assessment primitive, military threat level minimal, recommended action, standard conquest protocol. Lieutenant Lisa Carter looked confused. Standard conquest protocol? Captain, this sounds like they tried to conquer Earth. Morrison nodded grimly. Keep reading, Amy. Dr. Foster continued through the files. Admiral Tethron's report. Delivered standard ultimatum to human leadership. Join Empire as vassals or face annihilation. Human response was rejection of terms and declaration of intent to resist. Security Chief Kevin Stone shook his head. They gave humanity an ultimatum? Join or die. It gets worse, Ryan said, activating the next set of files. Look at the battle reports. The display showed tactical analyses from the alien perspective. Morrison read aloud. Battle of Luna Station. Human forces employed unorthodox ramming tactics. Acceptable loss ratios suggest either desperation or tactical insanity. Imperial losses, 1 squadron. Human losses, 1 squadron. Outcome inconclusive. Commander Helen Brooks looked shocked. They thought our ancestors were insane for fighting back. Dr. Foster found more files. Listen to this. Month 2 analysis. Human technological advancement rate exceeds all known parameters. Human vessels now incorporating Imperial technology, but with improvements our engineers cannot explain. Recommend immediate reinforcement. Morrison felt a chill as he read the next report. Month 3. Human boarding parties display unprecedented aggression. Imperial soldiers report psychological trauma from close combat with human forces. Human soldiers continue fighting despite fatal wounds. Recommend psychological support units for all Imperial personnel. Lisa Carter discovered communication records between alien commanders. Captain, look at this message from Admiral Tethron to Imperial Command. Request immediate withdrawal authorization. Human combat tactics causing mental breakdown among crew. Soldiers refusing boarding assignments. Pilots requesting transfer away from human space. This species fights like they have no fear of death. Ryan Walsh found the final battle reports. Here's how it ended. Month 6. Complete Imperial withdrawal from human space. Admiral Tetheron declares human solar system permanently restricted. Peace negotiations attempted, but humans provide no response. Recommendation: establish quarantine zone and avoid all future contact. Morrison stared at the files in amazement. So 3,000 years ago, when humanity barely had spaceflight, we fought the galaxy's greatest empire to a standstill. Not just fought them, Dr. Foster said. We traumatized them so badly that they've been afraid of us ever since. Suddenly, alarms sounded throughout the ship. Lisa Carter rushed to her communication station. Captain, I'm receiving a transmission. It's not from the fleeing fleets. It's coming from a single ship approaching our position. What kind of ship? Small vessel, minimal weapons. They're broadcasting on all frequencies and transmitting what appears to be a diplomatic identification code. Morrison made a decision that would change galactic history. Put them through. The main screen flickered, and for the first time, humans and aliens looked at each other face to face. The alien was tall and thin, with blue skin and large eyes that showed both fear and determination. I am Ambassador Jethrin of the Cathani people, the alien said in carefully pronounced English. I represent the Imperial Diplomatic Corps. I come seeking peaceful contact with the human expedition. Morrison stepped forward. I am Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth vessel USS Liberty. Ambassador, we've discovered historical records suggesting previous contact between our species. We need to understand what happened. Jethrin's eyes widened with surprise. You do not know of the 6-month war? We're learning about it now, but our records from that time are incomplete. What we've found suggests there was a massive misunderstanding. The ambassador looked confused. Misunderstanding? Dr. Foster joined the conversation. Ambassador, according to your historical files, your people offered humanity a choice. Join your empire or be destroyed. From our perspective, that wasn't an offer. It was a declaration of war. Jethrin stared at her in shock. But our diplomats followed standard first contact protocols. All species are given the choice between vassalage and conquest. Morrison felt the pieces clicking together. And when humanity rejected both options and chose to fight instead, your people interpreted that as an act of insanity rather than self-defense. You fought not to conquer us, but to protect your world. Jethrin asked. Of course, Morrison replied. What did you expect us to do when threatened with slavery or death? The ambassador was quiet for long moments. Captain Morrison, I believe I understand the source of our historical conflict. Our species approached yours with the assumption that conquest was preferable to death. Your species responded with the assumption that freedom was preferable to either. Lisa Carter had been monitoring Imperial communications during the conversation. Captain, their evacuation fleets have stopped retreating. Word about this diplomatic contact is spreading through their communication networks. Ryan Walsh checked his long-range sensors. Sir, I'm detecting massive ship movements throughout Imperial space. But they're not attack formations. They look like ships returning to their positions. Ambassador Jethrin looked relieved. Captain, if I may make a suggestion. Our Emperor has convened the Grand Military Council to discuss the human threat. Perhaps we could arrange a direct communication between your expedition and Imperial leadership. Morrison nodded. We'd welcome that opportunity. But Ambassador, there's something else we need to discuss. Your people have spent 3,000 years believing that humans are galaxy-conquering warriors. The truth is, we're explorers. This is humanity's first expedition beyond our solar system. Your first expedition? Jethrin looked stunned. But our analysis suggested you would have advanced significantly since the war. Dr. Foster smiled. We have advanced, Ambassador. But in science, medicine, and peaceful technology, we never developed into the military threat your people feared because we had no reason to conquer anyone. The implications hit the ambassador like a physical blow. You mean, the Empire has spent 3 millennia preparing for an invasion that was never coming? That's exactly what we mean, Morrison confirmed. Hours later, Captain Morrison found himself in the most important diplomatic conference in human history. On the main screen, Emperor Kothron himself appeared, flanked by his military commanders. The 4 human ship captains faced the leaders of a galactic empire. Captain Morrison, the Emperor said, Ambassador Jethrin has explained your interpretation of historical events. Are you saying the 6-month war was a result of miscommunication? Morrison chose his words carefully. Your Majesty, I believe both our species acted according to their nature and understanding. Your people followed established diplomatic protocols. My people defended themselves against what they perceived as an existential threat. Emperor Kothron looked thoughtful. And now? What are human intentions regarding the Empire? Peaceful contact, trade, and mutual cooperation, Morrison replied. Humanity has no interest in conquest. We're explorers seeking to understand the galaxy and our place in it. Fleet Admiral Krextar leaned forward. Captain, your reputation in our military is that of unstoppable warriors. How do we reconcile that with your claims of peaceful intent? Morrison smiled. Admiral, humans fight fiercely when threatened, but we prefer to build rather than destroy. The same determination that made us effective soldiers makes us effective scientists, engineers, and diplomats. The Emperor was quiet for several minutes. Finally, he spoke. Captains, the Empire proposes the following: establishment of formal diplomatic relations, creation of joint exploration missions, and gradual integration of human space into galactic civilization. Are these terms acceptable? Morrison looked at his fellow captains, who all nodded agreement. Your Majesty, humanity accepts these terms gladly. As the communication ended, Morrison reflected on the strange turn of events. Humanity's fearsome reputation, earned through a misunderstood defensive war 3,000 years ago, had actually paved the way for peaceful first contact. The galaxy's greatest empire was so relieved that humans came in peace that they were eager to establish friendly relations. Dr. Foster joined him at the viewing port, where they could see Imperial ships returning to their stations. Captain, do you think they'll ever stop being a little afraid of us? Morrison smiled. Amy, I think a little healthy respect between species isn't such a bad thing. As long as they know we're explorers first and warriors only when we have to be.